Senator Blakespear, you're here to present two bills, SB 1066, a special date in British history, and SB 1361 as well. So let's start with 1066.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chair and colleagues. SB 1066 is a common sense measure to ensure the safe disposal of pyrotechnic marine flares. Do I have the permission of the chair to show a photograph of a marine flare?
Sure, yes.
Okay.
With pleasure.
So this is what they look like in a box delivered to a fire department that the fire department then needed to deal with these. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. The U.S. Coast Guard requires vessels that are longer than 16 feet and are operating on oceans to carry approved visual distress signals for use in emergencies. Most often, boaters carry 3 pyrotechnic flares that are approved for both day and nighttime use. While there are several brands of battery-powered alternatives, many boaters prefer flares due to their increased visibility during the day. These flares expire 42 months after they're manufactured, meaning they no longer satisfy the Coast Guard requirements. Unused, expired marine flares cannot be disposed of in the regular trash or the recycling. They are explosives, and they must be taken to a facility permitted to accept explosives. Flares also contain chemicals that cause pollution and harm human health. While the exact number can be debated, California's Division of Boating and Waterways estimates that 174,000 flares expire in the state of California each year. Conservatively, there are at least tens of thousands of flares in need of disposal each year, but nearly all household hazardous waste facilities refuse to accept them. In fact, Alameda County is the only county in California that we have found that actively accepts flares, but even they lack the permits necessary to dispose of them. As far as we know, there is only one facility in the entire country that currently accepts flares for disposal, and it is over 1,500 miles away in Missouri. Without viable option, boaters report storing these flares on their boat, shooting them up into the air, or dumping them into the ocean. Stockpiled flares are a fire hazard. Shooting a distress signal outside of an emergency is a federal felony. Dumping unused flares into the ocean or otherwise can leach toxic metals and other pollutants into the water. Expired flares can often end up in the trash or left in front of local government buildings, like that photo that I showed you, like at police stations or fire stations. This results in high costs that are borne by local governments as they then become responsible for arranging for proper disposal. These costs are socialized then onto local taxpayers instead of the boaters who use them. We are actively collaborating with Orion Signals, the primary producer of marine flares, and the Recreational Boaters Association to ensure the costs are not so high that boaters stop carrying these emergency safety devices. SB 1066 will put the responsibility for funding and operating a convenient take-back system onto the producers with oversight by the Department of Toxic Substances Control. SB 1066 is supported by a broad coalition of stakeholders, including local governments, park districts, Teamsters, California professional firefighters, and individual fire districts, waste haulers, harbor districts, and environmental and public health organizations. With me today, I have Leslie Lucas on behalf of the Zero Waste Sonoma organization. They are a co-sponsor of this bill, as well as Justin Milan on behalf of the California Association of Environmental Health Administrators, who also happens to be an avid boater. So if there are any questions about these flares specifically, he can answer them. So with that, if you don't mind, Chair, I will turn it over to my lead witnesses.
Yeah, please proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Blakespear, Chair, and the members of the Senate Environmental Quality Committee, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify today. My name is Leslie Lukash. I'm the Executive Director of Zero Waste Sonoma, a joint powers authority that covers the unincorporated area of 9 cities and the town in Sonoma County and serves approximately 500,000 residents. Zero Waste Sonoma is proud sponsor of SB 1066, which solves a serious waste management problem plaguing California's coastline communities, like Sonoma County, which has over 76 miles of coastline. California counties are responsible for planning the management of household hazardous waste, otherwise known as HHW, and our management plans are approved by CalRecycle. Our agency operates an HHW facility in Sonoma County, and we are building a second facility at the estimated cost of $14 million to our ratepayers to build this facility, and that does not include the management of explosives like marine flares. The cost to operate an HHW facility is expensive and require highly trained staff to manage toxic materials. In fact, our HHW facility costs around $2 million a year to operate. Most HHW facilities across the state cannot afford the labor, transportation, and purchase of explosive storage containers called magazines needed to safely accept and manage explosive products. Our HHW facility is not permitted to accept marine flares, and we do not accept them from the public, but residents often leave them at our facility without our permission because they have no local option to safely dispose of them. Senator Blakespear showed you this picture. This was actually left at a fire department in the town I live in Windsor, just last month, and they don't know what to do with this product, so it's still at our local fire department right now. Sonoma County boaters sent me an email and stated there is literally nowhere to dispose of expired marine flares in our county. And he goes on to state that many boaters have told me that they soak marine flares in buckets and wait for the flares to disintegrate and then spread the remnants either on the garbage or down the drain in the waterways because they really don't know where to put the materials. But what happens to those chemicals that are in the water in the bucket? We know that the flares contain harmful chemicals and metals that can negatively impact our water quality. Furthermore, improper flare disposal and trash and recycling can expose hazards to our workers who work in the recycling facilities and the landfill. That is why we have support from the waste management and hauling industry. The majority of boaters literally have no option to properly dispose of flares and are confused on what to do with them. Yesterday, I went to a local marine store here in Sonoma, in Sacramento, to purchase a signal so you could see what a reusable one looks like.
If I could ask you to start wrapping up, because I know you have another minute.
Sure. So I just wanted to talk about the cost as the last thing, and that is we organized an event in partnership with two other counties, Marin and Contra Costa. It cost us $11,000 to manage 2 buckets of marine flares. That was a cost of roughly $185 per flare when the product is only $12 to buy. There are more cost-effective ways to do this. Alameda County does have the magazine to properly store them, and when they work with the economies of scale, it costs them about $16 to manage the flares. So with that, with the proper partnership and working together with the manufacturers, we look to find a more cost-effective way to manage flares. And so with that, I thank you for your time and ask for your aye vote today.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, thank you, Senator. Justin Milan with the Environmental Health Association, and we provide the oversight for both the Coopers, the hazmat folks, and the solid waste people. So we have this issue in both camps. Sometimes these flares end up in solid waste facilities, sometimes they hazardous waste facilities. But I also want to tell you about my experience as a boater. I've crossed 2 oceans, the Pacific a couple of times, and the Atlantic, and I wouldn't go to sea without a marine flare. So I wouldn't like to see a ban of the marine flare. But I can also tell you my extreme frustration in over 40 years in other countries as well as this in getting rid of these things safely. And I'm not prepared to just throw it in the water. I'm not prepared to flare it off when I'm not supposed to. I'm not prepared to drop it into a solid waste facility where I know somebody can get injured and hurt, and I'm also not going to take it home where my kids and my family can be injured, because these things become unstable after a number of years. That's why they have an expiry date. So there is an issue. It's an issue not only in California, it's an issue around the nation, and the cost is exorbitant. And the safety for everybody, the boat operator, the handlers, is significant. And the Coopers have found on many occasions that people can be in violation of taking these things if they don't have the proper protocols in place, if they don't have the proper handlers. So it is extremely frustrating for boaters to find a place to properly manage these flares at the end of their usable life. There is an expiry date on that, and you can get busted by the Coast Guard for having flares that are expired. So you have to turn these flares over. And I have, on my own boat, I must admit, I have got 12 flares that I still haven't got a home for. So I'm just keeping them on my boat. But these are pyrotechnic things. So if there's an incident on my boat, it can go up. and I'm very, very nervous about that. Just to stress, the reason why the hazmat folks, why the Coopers and the local environmental health are so concerned about this, is we just hear from the people that are operating these household hazardous waste facilities, either they cannot do it legally or financially or practically, or the general person that has a boat from any size, 15 feet to 500 feet, I've just seen a poll here. Over 50% of people are disposing of these things illegally by just holding on to them. They're already expired. They should have been properly dealt with. So it is a concern. It's a concern for the regulators. You know that the firefighters are in support. It's a concern for the firefighters to go into a facility. And you might hear about the cost, and you might hear about it inconvenient to have an EPR program. You can have an EPR program because I've taken used oil back to the marinas and the ports, and they have a process of dealing with it. So there are usually secure facilities within each marina, each port, where you could incorporate this collection and do it safely. So we thank you for your consideration. It's not just a flippant issue, it's a serious issue in the state and elsewhere. Thank you to the Senate for bringing it from. I'm happy to answer any questions from a technical and a boating perspective.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's hear from anyone else who wants to voice support for the bill.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Luis Sanchez on behalf of the California Waste Haulers Council in support.
Thank you.
Jordan Wells on behalf of the National Stewardship Action Council. We're a co-sponsor, and I'm also going to list off a couple of organizations that have asked me to express their support, including NAPA Recycling and Waste Services, the North American Hazardous Materials Management Association, Resource Recovery Coalition of California, Sonoma County Regional Parks Department, Center for Biological Diversity, San Mateo County Harbor District, Delta Diablo Sanitation District, San Francisco Baykeeper, Heal the Bay, Monterey Regional Waste Management District, Save Our Shores, Boat Safe Northwest, and Sirius Signal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Ariana Creed on behalf of Clean Earth for Kids and support. Also, those are in support are California Nurses for Environmental Health and Justice, FACTS, Grandparents in Action, Mamas, North County Equity and Justice, Interfaith Coalition for Environmental Justice, and NCCA.
Thank you.
Good morning. Just one organization, Sarah Polomu with the California Retailers Association in support. Thank you.
That's good.
Melissa Sparks-Kranz with the League of California Cities in support.
Thank you.
John Kennedy with the Rural Counties in support. Thank you.
Andrea Ventura with Clean Water Action in support.
Morning. Michael Caprio with Republic Services here in support.
Michelle Rubalcaba on behalf of Waste Management in support.
Yareli Magallon on behalf of San Mateo County in support.
Good morning. Nick Lapis with Californians Against Waste in support.
Good morning. David Krieger for Waste Connections in support.
Thank you. Megan Subers on behalf of the California Professional Firefighters in support.
Good morning. Elizabeth Espinosa on behalf of the Board of Supervisors in the County of Santa Barbara in support. Thank you.
Priscilla Kudos on behalf of the following clients: Western Plaster Waste Management Authority, Stop Waste, Solid Waste Association of North America Legislative Task Force, all in support, and in support in concept, California Product Stewardship Council. Thank you.
Good morning. Kiara Ross on behalf of the Town of Truckee in support.
Good morning. Samantha Samuelson on behalf of Rethink Waste in support.
I'm Megan Shumway, representing Sacramento 350 in support.
Thank you. Okay. Opposition. Okay, why don't you come? You can come up here.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Jim Lights on behalf of Orion Safety Products, one of the primary manufacturers of marine safety flares. We're opposed to the bill for a couple of reasons. We wanted to note for this committee in particular that some of the chemicals of concern, that potassium perchlorate is not a component of marine flares. It has never been a component of aerial flares and was eliminated from handheld flares in 2022. Also wanted to note that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms has consistently deemed Orion flares to be exempt from their explosive device regulations. Another reason is that not all flares are created equal. Handheld flares can be safely burned in a safe location, not around water, not around other combustible debris. Much like a ground flare would be burned. Our test results show that the ash from those burned flares does not contain any hazardous materials. But the aerial flares is where we think the discussion here really should be had. There are fewer disposal options for aerial flares, and we look forward to working with the proponents and the author to discuss how those might be managed a little bit better. Senator Blakespear did mention one of the things that we're most concerned about, and that is the cost of flares potentially going up as a result of a program like this and discouraging boaters from having the flares that are approved for day and evening use, whereas the beacons are good at night, but they're not approved for daytime use, the electronic light beacons. Our experience is also that some of the most successful collection and disposal programs are localized. Sometimes, events that may take place in a day or over a weekend, and we would like to figure out how we can better operate some of those localized programs than a broader state program. And so with that, we would ask for your no vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Chair and members, Jerry Desmond. Thank you. Chair and members, Jerry Desmond with Recreational Boaters of California, RBOC. Maybe to start off, RBOC has been a statewide advocacy organization for the state's boaters since 1968, and we become engaged in a variety of issues affecting everything from boating under the influence on the waterways, to the use of our gas tax dollars, to rules of the road, to copper-based anti-fouling paints, and have a tradition of representing over a couple 100,000 individual boaters who belong to different boating and sailing clubs and organizations. And our concern with the legislation at this point is really the public safety issue. Our organization and the state's boaters have been financing for years a voluntary turn-in program for vessel flares through the Boating Clean and Green campaign financed by the Division of Boating and Waterways as well as the Coastal Commission, and have encouraged boaters to turn in their flares. What we find is the experience is similar to one of the proponents, that a boater will keep the flares on their boat even if they're expired as backup. There's about a 3-year live date where they work, but they'll just keep them on their boat, just as was testified to earlier. And the understanding that during the day, these flares, the alternatives to these flares don't work during the day. So what we're sensitive to, and we're engaged with the author and the proponents and all stakeholders, is to ensure that as we address the public health, the hazardous and toxic materials and the explosive nature of these devices, that we recognize the important public health and safety benefit of a boater having this on their boat when they're out on the waterways. This bill doesn't thread that needle yet. We've heard of different ideas for EPR programs. We've heard of local program alternatives. We heard of statewide. We heard costs between $15 a flare and $158 a flare. Those aren't ironed out yet. And without them being ironed out yet, and we're engaged to work those out, but at the present, without knowing that, we're not willing to sacrifice public health and safety at this, as it's currently worded. Now, are we committed to try to develop a program that works, that doesn't end up in a boater having to pay $100 per flare to dispose of a flare? Most certainly we are. And for that reason, we appreciate the engagement and look forward to developing some solutions that work on the waterways.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Other folks who want to weigh in opposition or raise concerns? Have we even gotten a letter from Real Quick?
Yes.
Okay.
We sent a letter in on Monday. A late letter, but a letter.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Mr. Chair, members, Sarah Nocito on behalf of the National Marine Manufacturers Association in opposition. Thank you.
Okay. Certainly appreciate it, and I totally get a lot of your clients. I'm really glad that Orion's retained you, Mr. Lights, because I think it'll help with the discussions. It's a recent. They recently brought you on. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, how are the conversations going? I mean, have you guys been able to all sit down and talk shop?
We have, and we have another call scheduled this Friday.
Okay, all right. Because I know that some of the folks from the National Stewardship Action Council have been reaching out to Orion for a long, long time, and I'm just glad now that we've got some people they can talk to and engage with, because we really are looking for a way to make. I mean, this. I think everyone here knows what a believer I am in EPR, it's something that if done right, can be done collaboratively, and the producers are an absolutely essential part of the conversation. They know their products best, they know their markets best, and they also know the development and potential end use best. And it's my hope in our conversations with the author staff and author, that's what they're seeking to get here. And having these conversations with an open mind from your clients, I think, is going to be absolutely critical to reaching an agreeable solution here that's going to do right by our environment and make sure that we're not compromising safety for boaters. So I'm glad that you're on the job, and we'll be working on this. So do you have any kind of initial reactions to some of the commentary made, Senator? Or?
I mean, I can wrap it up in my close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, questions? Yes, Senator Dolly.
I just want to say, I'm going to be supporting your bill today. I think this is a common sense approach to a problem. Obviously, we have. But at the same time, as somebody who has worked with the Koopas when I was a county supervisor, and we had lead-based paint, all kinds of stuff coming in, and people really don't know what to do with it. And quite frankly, a lot of it goes down the drain or gets tossed, and that's the wrong thing. So obviously, in this case, we don't want that to happen either. But at the same time, we want to put a program together, hopefully with the manufacturers, that there's in my mind, I'm thinking like you basically rent the thing and then they can take it back, something like that. I don't know, but I look forward to seeing the bill get together and make it so that boaters will do it. Number one, that they won't throw them overboard, and that they'll use them, and it's reasonable. So that's what I'm looking for, and I think it sounds like you're headed in the right direction to get there. So I'll support your bill today, and hopefully they can iron all those things out, and we can alleviate this problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's let you close.
Yes, I want to say again, thank you to the sponsors and the lead witnesses who came to speak, as well as those in opposition who are at the table and we're in dialogue with, and then also to all the many organizations that came forward to express their support. I think it really shows that we do have a problem here, and the extended producer responsibility approach is designed to have the producer at the table coming up with the solution. So the cost is what it is. The question is, who is bearing it? And so right now, if someone pays $15 to buy a flare and it costs $150 on the back end to collect it, manage it, send it somewhere, or it just goes up in our environment and it's essentially pollution, toxic pollutant, that's not the society we want. So trying to figure out what are the solutions, and we will be working very closely with Orion to figure out how we can collect these in a way that is actually effective, because we need to be where people with their boats and their flares are so that we can get them back. I mean, the last thing we want is to have a program that nobody's participating in. So, that's why we have a bill like this that sends it into the extended producer responsibility realm. Instead of trying to figure it out ourselves legislatively, we're getting into dialogue with them. So I really appreciate your support, and I think this is a really important bill, and I urge your aye vote.
Yeah. Yes.
One last comment. If it's $15 to buy this and it's $100 to get rid of it, they'll just shoot it off somewhere and it won't go back. We have to get that. We have to have parity there somewhere. So I know you know that.
Right, but it's a great example. It's a great example of how a company provides a service to people, right? Makes a lot of money off it, sends it out into the market, and yet they have no cost associated with the end use of the product, and it's then borne by the environment and everybody else. And this is a crystal clear example of the need for an EPR approach, because there's such an externality cost here with a product like this, and they're making the money from consumers, and the environment's paying the cost, and taxpayers are paying the cost in many respects with regards to cleanup, and so they have to be part of the solution. I just appreciate you forcing the issue. And sorry.
Voters regulated to have it on their books.
Right, and so we have to have a plan for proper disposal, like with everything. Anyway, that's what we're trying to get at here. Senator Menjivar moves the bill, and let's call the roll.
SB 1066, motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Judiciary. Senators Allen.
Aye.
Allen, aye. Dowling.
Aye.
Dowling, aye. Gonzalez. Hurtado. Menjivar. Menjivar, aye. Wynn. Skinner.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, and thank you for all the advocates as well, your engagement. All right, let's hear now.